Time is motion quantified. If space is considered by itself, then it is a singularity. It has no dimensions, it has no shape, and it appears to be eternally now because of us not considering any matter or energy which would inject the appearance of change and thus inject a feeling of the passage of time. When a meditator goes into a state of samadhi, there is total wakeful awareness of the self, but without any thoughts. And when coming out of that state, any quantity of time can occur without the meditator knowing that the time has passed, until they come out of that state and notice, oh, wow, time has passed. Because there's nothing to mark the passage of time if there are not any thoughts. And if in combination with that state of mind, the person remains awake because that's all they are aware of, is a self-awareness of wakefulness and no thoughts, then they are in the state of samadhi and they lose track of time until they come out of that, and then they notice that time has passed. There is a fellow by the name of Epimenides who lived in ancient Greece. He lived to be 299 years of age. He was a shepherd boy when he fell asleep in a cave for 20 years. And when he came out, he said he had realized the unity of everything in the universe. And he had gained the ability to prognosticate people's future, but he would only tell them what he had seen or come to know if it was something good, if it was good news. But if it was bad news, he kept his mouth shut. So the only reason why he died was not due to old age. It was because he was captured by a bunch of thugs, for lack of a better word, who demanded that he tell them their future. He refused. And they said, well, if you don't tell us, we'll kill you by morning. And they did. There's a story or a rumor that goes around that if you reach enlightenment before the age of 35, you have the option of achieving not just immortality of your consciousness upon the death of your body, but immortality of your body as well, if you choose to go that extra route. And when you're in that kind of condition, the only way for you to leave is to take on other people's karma, the karma of death, so that they survive and you die. Another fellow who was in a deep state of samadhi for also 20 years is a fellow by the name of Valmiki, which in Sanskrit is not too distinct as to whether it means an anthill or a termite hill, because it means either or. And he acquired that name because he sat down in the forest and in a state of meditation for 20 years. That means you don't come out during the entire duration until you are darn ready for the mind to boot you out. And so this anthill or termite hill got built up around him, and that was a pretty good deal because he wasn't hiding in a cave. And so sitting out there in the forest, what if somebody came along and did something to his body such that when he came out of samadhi, he didn't have a body to come out to? So it was good that he was hidden and sequestered underneath this anthill. And when he got done with his meditation, he got up, brushed off the anthill, and went and wrote the Ramayana in a single draft. If you know anything about writing, and you would, or else you wouldn't be at Substack, it takes a lot of drafts to get it right. And you're always tweaking and changing. He did it in one draft. That is nothing short of brilliance. But 20 years of samadhi, it kind of makes sense. From my experience, yeah, you will know exactly what to do, when to do it, and you will not make an error. Yeah, that's the way it works with that sort of thing. So what I think happened is you transcended for 15 minutes. You lost your sense of time because you were aware that you were in some kind of energy state, which is self-awareness of your being, of your existence, but you had no thoughts. And so there was no passage of time, and the realization came afterwards, unless I'm mistaken. I'm assuming that's when you had your epiphany of what state you were in after the fact. In hindsight, you analyzed it and you came to that conclusion, because when you're in that state, you don't have any thoughts. So you can't analyze anything. You can't sense anything. You can't imagine anything. You can't have dreams. And you're not blacked out either. You're awake. You're fully awake, but aware of nothing other than your wakeful state. And that's samadhi by definition. Now, to back that up is why I say space is a singularity, because the state of permanent enlightenment is a state in which the individual achieves a body that is non-corruptible so that they can survive death. And that body is composed of space, because space does not undergo any kind of change whatsoever. And it has no distinctions about it either in a relativistic sense. So the relativists are wrong when they say that, space has shape, it has dimensions, blah, blah, blah. That's a bunch of bullshit. It's the matter within space, the energy and matter that is constantly undergoing change, which gives us the passage of time, the sense of the passage of time, and it also gives us the sense of plurality, of that point A being over there, and this point B is over here, and it takes so much time to move between the two, blah, 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 and you compare and contrast. Oh, there's a high-pressure zone, here's a low-pressure zone, and so the air moves from the high pressure to the low pressure. That's the kind of thing you get with matter and energy, but space by itself has no distinctions whatsoever. It's absolute, non-changing. It's your true self when we transform ourselves from a tiny little divine spark into a roaring flame, eternal flame that is fully functional insofar as a nervous system is concerned, and so we don't need to reincarnate anymore, because our functionality is more like God than anything else. It's no longer like a mortal. So in those conditions, that's what happens. The individual, when they drop their body, their human form, they're already creating their own universe of galaxies and worlds and beings within themselves, because now they are God to their thoughts, and each one of their thoughts is a divine creation. Prior to that state of enlightenment, we still create beings that we know of as thoughts. They're just not eternal. They don't go on and grow. They instead diminish, and they never disappear, but they diminish in power and clarity, and they kind of become fuzzy and confused or something, and weak and wimpy. But in that state of enlightenment, we're fully endowed with the clarity and the power such that our thoughts are fully birthed beings, creatures, that are now starting their evolutionary development just like we did a long time ago, if you want to think in terms of time. Anywho, so you came out of the state when you were darn ready to do so, and it's good that nobody disturbed your body. You healed yourself because that drop in blood pressure induced a corresponding state in your mind in which you were able to transcend the relative, go to the absolute state, and be there for what would outwardly appear to be 15 minutes, but inwardly was not something you could sense in terms of time until you came out and saw that time had passed. That's what I'm guessing is what happened. People have done this on occasion quite by accident, just like Epimenides. Valmiki sat down to meditate. And, it's maybe you paid a price to achieve that, but regardless, you achieved it. Now, I had a biocircuit I created, a variation of Leon Ernest Eamon's biocircuit, in which I plugged in Eric Dollard's analog computer in longitudinal magnetodielectric mode after making a few mistakes, which weakened my heartbeat and I had to recover from. But once I figured out how to do things with capacitors in relationship to bionic circuits, I managed to achieve Samadhi for 2.5 hours, which is, for me, unprecedented, because in my meditations, if it happens, it's a blink of the eye and it's over. And I was quite impressed and surprised when I came out, because I always had a habit of looking at the clock before and afterwards, and I saw that 3 hours had passed, yet I was certain it only took me 15 minutes before I lost the state of awareness of the relative, and another 15 minutes to readjust myself once I came out, before I opened my eyes and got out of bed and disconnected myself from the circuit. So I then computed, did the math, and that's 2.5 hours that I could not account for. But I was awake the whole time, because I'd been doing that treatment modality after I had nearly committed suicide 15 years ago? No, 12. And it freaked me out, because that's not something my intellect is accustomed to thinking about, and I don't accept it. But I had allowed it to be injected into my emotional part of my brain, the lizard part, the hippocampus or whatever it's called, because of my relationship with a woman who was severely traumatized in her youth. And so I had acquired her despondent perspective, and she acquired my positive attitude as a meditator. We did a little exchange. That's karma. I suspected I probably raped her in a past life, and I owed her the favor. And I nearly killed myself, but in order to come out of that trauma, I did various therapies. And since I knew about Eric Dollard and his analog computer, and I knew about Leon Ernest Eamon's biocircuit, I married the two with fantastic results. Because every day I did it, what it did was it gave me deep sleep and suppressed the dream activity. So I was like a hibernating bear, because it was very deep. And so since I still needed to dream, I could only do this in the daytime. I couldn't do it at night, because I would feel deprived of not dreaming if I did it at night. So I did one session, sometimes two on a rare occasion, but usually only one in the middle of the day. And my mind brought me out of that state when it was darn ready to do so. But I was asleep, catching up on my sleep deprivation. Once I got caught up after about 6 weeks of doing it on a daily basis, that's when I had the Samadhi experience, because I did not fall asleep, because I wasn't short of sleep. And instead, I had no thoughts, because the circuit suppresses the activity of the mind thinking thoughts. So it literally induced Samadhi, because I was ready to have it induced upon my person. And at the same time, an uncanny thing happened. The circuit broke, and I lost also the desire to fix it. And so it was kind of like I did that in order to, okay, you did that once, but don't do it again. As if some kind of higher mind and higher authority in my consciousness decided, okay, that was nice, but you're not doing this anymore. And I tried a little bit feebly to get back what I had experienced, but I could never really do it. I could never have the gumption, the courage to set up the circuit exactly the way I had done before. I always kept setting it up some other new way, and so I couldn't get the same experiences. How could I? Anyway, so that's what I think you went through, and it's you just need perspective. If that's true, if that's the case, yeah, people talk about it, but not generally, because it's so personal. I got a big mouth, so I don't care. But most people keep it to themselves, their experiences in meditation, or if they have something happen by so-called happenstance, they keep it to themselves, or they don't know how to analyze it in order to express it in words, or both. I don't have any problems with either one. I got a big mouth, and I can analyze it because I've been a meditator for the past half century. And this is my second lifetime as a meditator anyway. So I don't have any problems talking about it or analyzing it. And I am intrigued when these things happen, just as I'm sure you are, because my meditations are not usually that fantastic. Even though I've gotten accustomed to being deep, But transcending the whole field of the relative and going to an absolute state of that condition of samadhi, that's rare for me. And it's probably because I have a weak body. I was born of an alcoholic mother. So, because I had a friend who I'm still friends with, a TM teacher, who has what's called Gemlight. He has a Gemlight device. Now he's too old to give me treatments, but he used to give me treatments and he'd meditate with me. And I had the most fantastic, my very first experience when he gave me a Gemlight treatment. That's when you have a laser pen light. It shines through semi-precious and precious gemstones onto the aura of the body. And it took 25 years for Maharishi Mahesh Yogi and a guy by the name of Dr. Roller, I think his name was, in West Germany, before the fall of the Berlin Wall. They worked together to develop this system, which is a more recent version of what the ancients did in ancient India. They used gemstones and light. But now with laser pen lights, it's a whole different story. So I had experiences. Well, the first one, I was awake the whole time for the 20-minute session, and I had no thoughts. And when I came out, I was kind of delirious, or not delirious, like confused about reorientation to the real world, the so-called real world. It was kind of screwy because, and people were laughing and cracking jokes, and I couldn't appreciate the humor because I was still disoriented. This was the first time that I'd ever had that long an experience of samadhi. It was quite remarkable. This was before I had the 2.5-hour bionic circuit session. And it was only after some time that I realized what happened. I was awake the entire time. I had no thoughts, and there was a loss of the sense of time and a disorientation afterwards in getting readjusted to the so-called real world of physicality. So it's quite a phenomenon to transcend the whole field of the relative and go to the absolute state of self-awareness of one's own being. And it's not a, my bionic circuit suppressed thoughts, but or it created a condition in which no thoughts occurred, let's put it that way. But it doesn't mean it suppresses the desire or it prevents you from fulfilling the desire. You simply don't have the thoughts, any thoughts. Regardless of the mechanism involved, I wouldn't know. I'm in no condition to analyze what only happened one time with that bionic circuit. Because when it comes about in meditation, I don't know why the body decides to transcend the whole field of the relative and stay in a state of samadhi for whatever length of time it decides to stay in it. And it's really none of my business to bother worrying about it either. I'm just grateful when it happens. That's basically. That was what I tried to tell you, and then my Substack app it collapsed and lost everything. I might have said some other stuff, I can't remember, but that's the part I remember. So, maybe that helps point you in a certain direction so that you can find the people who have this experience on a frequent basis, more often than I do, and maybe they're willing to talk about it. I started Transcendental Meditation when I was 16, and since I never had these experiences for most of the last half century of being a meditator, I never had the opportunity to ask anybody any questions on this particular topic. But 15 minutes, well, no, there was a TM teacher, that's right, John Briganti. He's now in Fairfield, Iowa. But when he was at the TM Center in LA, he did speak of people who had like strokes, something that would happen, their brain, maybe they had a stroke or something, and they would transcend. And he made the comment, the quip, gee, they could have done TM and avoid the stroke if they wanted to transcend. Well, karma's karma. If that's what it took to get you to transcend, then so be it. And now you've done it. So now, okay, what are you going to do about it? it's not a question from a meditator standpoint. It's not a question of finding people to talk about it alone. That's a good start. But it's a question of continuing to have the experience without having to go to the trouble of bleeding to death. It would be nice to, sit comfortably and close the eyes and keep your blood inside your body. TM helped me as a teenager because I had terrible depression since the age of 4. And in a matter of weeks, it wiped it away, and it freaked me out because I thought that was so absurd. I'm supposed to be depressed. Why did it leave so suddenly? It took me a year to get used to that alone, that transformation alone, because I was really freaking out. I thought I was abnormal or something, It's like, come on, where's the depression? It's not there anymore, So I can say nothing but good things about TM. Some people complain, oh, the price is too high, or it's a waste of time, blah, 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 or I am stressed my brains out. Whatever, it's their karma, It's they're expressing their point of view. From my point of view, I have nothing bad to say about it. It's just I'm a fool, and I tend to make foolish decisions. So when I wiped away all my depression, I thought, okay, karma, I know you're out there. Come and get me. Here I am. And literally, I got socked with so much karma that after 35 years of regular practice of TM, I couldn't do it anymore on a regular basis. And it's been spotty ever since because I was foolish enough to ask the universe to give me more karma, thinking I was invincible. Well, with my TM, I can dissolve any karma. Yeah, for 35 years, but not anymore. Now I'm frail and shattered and broken, and I'm damaged goods. That's the problem with contacting the absolute. You think that the relative is, it's an ant. It's nothing to me. It's just peevish, teeny-weeniness. It's no problem overcoming that. Well, after not quite true. I'm not in a state of invincibility yet, so I should never have invited karma to overwhelm me. You, karma, here I am. Come and get me. As if, and I wasn't playing hide and seek. I literally wanted my karma to come to me. Or anybody else's. I didn't care. Hey, give me the world's karma. I didn't care. I was so full of bliss and self-assurance, but that's all been worn down, and now I'm more reasonable and practical and normal. I know my limitations. I'm a bag of jello. And I'm homeless. I'm poor. I don't have any job skills. I'm a mess. I'm good at research. I'm one of a kind when it comes to research, but it comes to making money and paying the bills and having a nice warm bed to sleep in and a bathtub and a bathroom that I can poop in the middle of the night without having to wonder about, do I poop in the car? I don't think I want to take that chance. I'm in terrible physical condition due to circumstances, which I never bothered to put under control. Oh, well. Enough of me. So anyway,